All right, let me begin. It's Thursday, May 21st, 2020. This is a meeting of the Southwick Select Board. Let me begin by reading the following. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A-18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Town of Southwick Select Board is being conducted both at Town Hall and via remote participation by some or all members. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceeding as provided by for the order. Despite our best efforts, if we are not able to provide for real-time access via Zoom conference call platform, we'll post a recording of the meeting on the town website as soon as we are able. My name is Russell Fox. I'm chairman of the Southwick Select Board. We also have Vice Chairman Doug Moglen, Select Board member Joe Dede, our administrative assistant Cindy Pendleton, Fire Chief Russ Anderson, Deputy Fire Chief Richard Stefanowitz. I see the press is here, and we have a couple of guests, and we have a candidate that we're going to be interviewing at a later time. Have I covered everyone? With that, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and
to the republic
which it stands under
God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we have public comments. This is anyone that is not on the agenda that would like to make a statement to the Select Board. This would be your opportunity to do it. I ask anybody that would like to make a statement to please state your name and address. Is there anyone here at this point that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, we're going to go right into the agenda. The first thing on the agenda is to discuss the COVID-19, any actions. I think we're all familiar with the fact that the governor has a four-way plan. The first phase began this week. I don't know if I need to go into any more detail on that. I think everybody's kind of aware of it. The news media has been very good at getting the message out. Chief Anderson, would you like to state anything as far as it affects your department? He's muted.
I mean, right now it's status quo. We're doing good with PPE. Our calls are actually down probably 20 to 30%. A lot of what we're finding is people don't want to go to the hospital. So when we had a typical lift assist at any of the facilities, those would probably 50 to 60% be transports, and we're not seeing those anymore. People just don't want to go. So our calls are down, but that's going to have a rippling effect because at some point the person with chest pain that's been putting it off is going to need to go to the hospital and want to go to the hospital. So give it a couple months. I think this summer will be busy. We'll see a rebound from that.
All right, thank you, Russ. For anybody that's listening, the Board of Health is meeting at 6 p.m. Is that correct, Doug?
Yep.
Okay. And people can zoom into that. Any other comments concerning the COVID-19 discussion from the Select Board?
Just briefly, I had a couple of conversations with a couple other mayors from surrounding communities, mostly around some of the ambiguities that they're getting from this phase one, some of it around golf, some of it around, there's a lot of angst from some of restaurants in particular that want to do al fresco seating and so on and so forth that they really can't do yet. But that's all I've been hearing is, you know, people are kind of getting ready for phase one as it happens. I know all the businesses and stuff that can go back now, but we'll have to have self-certification and PPE in place, masks and so on and so forth, and distancing and everything for next week. It's certainly a challenge for a lot of these businesses to get all that in place. There's a lot of, they've made it a little bit easier on the state level with the documentation that they've given people to be able to self-certify, so everyone doesn't have to create all that documentation, but they still have to go through all the processes and set up all the training and reporting and recording of training and everything else for everyone. So it is quite a bit of work.
Joe, anything?
We're taking brush back at the town transfer station. We stopped Monday taking it at TJ Bark Mulch. The white goods we're still waiting on till we get some kind of opening at town hall, the permits and whatnot. And that's pretty much it. And yes, Doug, our ears were bleeding there the other day between the golf courses and the restaurants in town here wanted to just open up anyways, but they've calmed down for the most part, and business as usual.
Could you make a note and ask the DPW to make sure they change their sign at the transfer station so people know they can now bring brush there? I believe it still stated they couldn't.
Will do.
Thank you. All right. If there's no more discussion on that, we will be interviewing for the Southwick Fire Department EMT paramedic position. We have a candidate, Neil Colburn, that will be interviewing.
Hello, everyone.
I'm sorry? Okay. Neil, can you hear me?
Yeah, can.
Okay. I know this is a little difficult doing this interview over this platform, but what we're going to do, we have 6 questions that we're going to ask of you. At the end of that, we're going to give you an opportunity to make any statement you'd like to the select board. And it is my hope that the select board is going to be taking action tonight.
All right.
But I have not discussed that with the other members yet. All right. So I am going to start out with the first question. Neil, why do you want to work in Southwick as a firefighter EMT?
I would like to work in Southwick. Prior to joining, I heard it's a great department with a good group of people. And then after working there for about a month, I can definitely say that's true. And I'd like to continue working there. I also consider it part of my greater community. I live very close to the station, and it works out very well for me from a perspective of being a good job and a good career, and then also just being a really good group of people.
Is that a lie detector or?
Yep, it's a lie detector.
That was perfect.
Yeah.
That was.
By the way, this is a very informal board we have here, Neil, just so you know.
Oh, no problem.
Mr. Moglen, next question, please.
In your view, how does the chain of command differ in emergency and non-emergency situations?
How does the chain of command differ?
Yep.
So in emergency situations, you're kind of very limited as to who you can get in contact with. So for example, in the field, if we were to run into an emergency situation where we're taking care of a patient, the chain of command really refers to, who's on the ambulance, who's on scene, and then who can I get in touch with, say, via phone or radio. And then in non-emergency situations, you can be more official, I guess, on talking to the predetermined people you need to talk to, I guess. So you have the liberty of finding the correct people, and in an emergency situation, you need to work with whoever's on scene.
Excellent.
Doug, ask the next question, because mine aren't here. Where'd you find yours?
In the packet that Clip dropped off at the house.
Oh, all right.
So, in Joe Didi's best voice, how do you handle an assignment given to you from a superior who you do not agree with?
Well, they're still my superior, so as long as the assignment is something that is legal, should be done, and is in the best interest of the department, I would say you just do it.
Joe, how was that?
It's okay. Okay.
A little more effort next time, Doug.
A little. I mean, No F-bombs, nothing?
Oh, no, I wasn't going to do that. At least I didn't have to do a Darth Vader impersonation from last night.
All right, with that,
Yes, your turn.
I will ask the next question. Neil, what was your greatest failure and what did you learn from that experience?
My greatest failure. Last year, me and my wife moved to Utah for like a very brief period of time. We were going to try and get some jobs out there and, you know, see some other parts of the country. And I don't really consider it necessarily a failure, but I guess in some ways it is. We went out there. We were trying to, you know, make things work. And unfortunately, we had some family commitments back here at home that we weren't able to address from being out there. So we had to come back. I don't know. I don't know if it really considered a failure, but that taught me that I was very happy I went through with something that I wanted to do, and I don't regret doing it. But that you just need to do things when they feel right in the moment, I guess.
A follow-up, how many wives do you currently have?
If I had stayed there longer, I'd have about 9, but yeah.
All right, thank you.
That was Selectman Didi asking that question for the record.
Strictly for insurance reasons. We were going to explain that he had 3 wives. He's back from Utah.
Yeah, I don't know how.
You don't have to. That's all that was for. Continue.
And it's important that these women never meet.
Yeah.
Are you aware that this is a small department that will be growing over the years to come? And where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 7 years?
Yeah, I am aware that this is a smaller department that's kind of growing, and that's actually one of the reasons that I was interested in joining the department. I kind of like working in a more suburban or slightly rural environment, which is one thing that Southwick is. I also think that it's good that the ALS service is just starting. I think there's going to be a lot of room for growth here. And it seems like everyone's really passionate about getting that up and running. In the future, I'd like to continue to be a paramedic. I really enjoy it. I enjoy training, and I would enjoy taking an active role in training in this department, if that's a possibility.
So quick follow-up, you are a licensed paramedic today, correct?
I am, that's true.
Fantastic.
Mr. Moglen, you want to do Mr. Didi again?
Well, sure. Have you reviewed the employee handbook, and do you have any questions with any of the policies or benefits?
I have reviewed it, and I do not at this time.
Very good, Mr. Didi. Excellent question. All
Glad
right,
he thought
Neil.
of it.
All right, Neil, this is your opportunity to say anything you'd like to say to the select board or any questions.
I don't have any questions at this time. I'd just like to say thank you. I appreciate being allowed to come on as a provisional. It's been a very good experience for 1 month. And I appreciate getting the interview done via Zoom. I know it's not perfect, but I do appreciate that it's getting done in light of everything else that's going on. So just like to say thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you.
All right, then we will continue with our meeting. The next thing I have is WIP 338 update and reopening plan for events. And I see that we have Rick Johnson and Keith Johnson here with us. So Mr. Johnson, whoever would like to speak.
How about the old man first, Keith? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I hope you had a chance to go through it. I know it's kind of wordy. The document was put together by a pretty elite group of individuals nationwide. NBC, Lucas Oil, Feld Entertainment, the AMA, American Motorcycle Association, Daytona International Speedway, 48 pretty key people that know what's going on. And this is the document that has been used nationwide for all of the tracks relative to national caliber and below, but certainly national with recognition of GNCCs, flat track, and parts of this were actually brought in by the motorsport industry itself. So it fit well. It follows everything from the World Health Organization, CDC, and we're very, very proud of all the work that all of us put into it over the last couple of months. You know, the key points I sent to you, basically it gets down to exactly what we have to do: social distancing, face masks and PPE, sanitation, and keeping, as we said, within the CDC and World Health Organization, of course, now the new state recommendations. Basically, it comes down to we're not entering a phase that involves racing at all initially. We're only talking about schools, and we're only talking about open practices. That fits under the outdoor adventure category that opens up a week this coming Monday. It's interesting, our open practices, we have in excess of 50% of the people that come in are not racers. They are outdoor adventure riders. That's what they do. None of them have any affiliation with any of the racing organizations that we entertain there. We would do it initially with a limited number of riders, no spectators. Safety on the track is a given. Obviously, when you're on that track, you know, tens of acres out there, social distancing has been what they've been trying to do ever since they started being on the track. You don't want to touch each other. You want to stay away. And they also have full coverage over their face when they're out there. So that's, you know, and pretty extreme separation. The challenges, as you see it, bringing people back in there would be the payment at the front gate, the insurance waiver signing, and the registration sign-in and payment. All of this has been taken care of and solved by online sign-up, where we would be signing and making all of the payments. There'd be no contact at all, no pens involved, no transfer of any paper or money as they come to the track. They would come to the front gate and they would show their ID. They're already on a list. If they're on the list, they can go in. If not, they turn around. Simple as that. The parking area. Keith and I have come up with a plan. I tried to show it because I have the background of the Bourne Bridge. I don't think it comes through. We took the aerial view of the track and segmented greater than what the plan recommends, which is only 10 feet. We broke it down into 20-foot by 40-foot rectangular areas. And with that, very conservatively, it's just under 300 people in pure separation. So that would work pretty well. And then, so obviously, when we start out with lower capacity to begin with, it's not going to be a problem keeping them separated. Minimal staff will be pre-screened. They have a checklist of where they've been, who they've been with, any symptoms, what was the temperature that day. They checked when they come in. The initial plan would be to continue to do as we always have, very small Wednesday afternoon schools, very quiet, all on the track, nobody in the pits at all. And then Saturdays and Sundays, initially just open practices and or schools. Very, very conservative compared to our counterparts around. And what's interesting is, and I'm sure Keith will key in on this, there is no category in any of the plan that recognizes motocross. It's not there. It's as close as you can get to mountain biking, which they're opening up for Monday. Keith, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so the tracks in New Hampshire have been opened up, and there's 3 tracks now. Each track was, it's a town-by-town basis. So 2 tracks were opened up for basically no restrictions on how many people. They just have to follow their social distancing. They have to follow the guidelines set forth, you know, by their governor for 6 feet apart and washing hands and the same sort of thing that we have in place where, you know, you know, everything is online, things like that. The other track had another town. They opened up, that was Winchester, New Hampshire, but they were limited to, I think, 150 people, 150 riders with an additional 150, so if each person brought one person with them. But their facilities are a little bit smaller as well than Southwick. You know, you guys have all been there, I'm sure, so you know the area that is there. So those tracks were opened up last week or this week, and so far so good. I guess there's a committee. I'm looking into the exact name of it, but I think it's something Berkshire East Committee or something that is working with, getting the motocross community in a group, and it would basically fall in the group of outdoor activities with mountain biking, beaches, things where people outdoor recreation sort of stuff, which again is opening up I guess on Monday. I don't have a whole lot of information on that yet. I just was hearing about that today. The biggest thing would be to show that we can practice social distancing, show that motocross in general, it's not like, nothing against ball sports. My son's a big basketball player and everything, but there's no balls getting tossed back and forth with people touching them. I mean, people generally, if this is a sport, I agree with the golf situation. Golf is a sport that you can socially distance yourself. You just can. There's a lot of room. You don't have to be near people, and they can safely practice it. I think motocross is the same way. And as my dad said, it's baby steps that we have to take, but we're not talking about racing. We're talking about practice, and so we have a lot more wiggle room as far as practicing social distance, and we're not under certain time crunches like on a race day. And I think it's something that has already been, obviously they're racing across the country and doing this across the country, but now New Hampshire and even Rhode Island following suit now. I think it's something we can do.
Thank you. Cindy, did our health director, Tammy Spencer, get a copy of this? Do you know?
I will find it out, and if not, I will definitely give it to her first thing tomorrow morning.
Russ, if I may.
Yeah. I wish
I met with the new Board of Health person the day before I sent this to you.
Okay.
I knew I was going to be there, and I knew that she would be, certainly as a new employee of the town, she would be very concerned. She didn't know a lot about the track. I wanted to bring her up to date. So I invited her over, and I showed her the facility and gave her a good feeling about how we would distance everybody and how we would handle it.
Good. I just wanted to make sure that we kept everybody in the loop. The Board of Health, of course, has a lot of power when it comes to this situation, which they should. So that's positive. Mr. Moglen?
If I get an opportunity, after the meeting, I'll run it down. They meet at 6, you said?
Correct.
Okay.
Doug, any comments? All right. Doug, did you hear me? You're muted. All right. Apparently he doesn't have any comments, or he's in a discussion somewhere else. Joe's laughing at that one.
Yeah, me and Tammy have already talked about it. She has the packet. She's well aware of the scenario.
No, she does.
And as I talked to Rick Johnson too, and basically told Rick that, right now Tammy Spencer is the sheriff. She kind of leads us onto everything. So once her blessing is a blessing, then we do our normal deal. But anything in town right now with opening goes through Tammy Spencer, our health agent.
Sorry about that, Chairman. I was talking into the mute like a...
That's okay. That's okay. It was very interesting.
It was the best explanation I've ever given. No, I think it's not dissimilar to golf, and as far as, this can be done safely. Obviously, the Board of Health is going to have the final say on this as far as interpreting as to where it fits in the phases under the governor's order. But, it looks like they have a decent plan, and, without the spectators and everything else for open practices and so on and so forth, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But be interesting to see what Tammy's take is on it.
All right. Would the board give me permission to work with the CAO and the Board of Health? I think we also have some paperwork that has to be worked out between the American Legion and the promoter, to make sure
Yep.
that we're all on board.
Correct.
Would the board give me that discretion to do that so we can hopefully get this open as quickly as possible and safely as possible? Any
Are you
problems?
looking I give you that motion if you're looking for it. It's Doug
I'd
Moglen.
like a motion.
Doug Moglen will make that motion.
I will,
Joe
Okay.
Didi will second it. But Russ, you seem to drag your feet on a lot of things. You know, me and Doug are in charge. Man, we get things done. I just throwing that out there. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a personal issue, but you know, let's go.
thank you for that motivational speech, Mr. Didi. I will take it under advisement. I'll get back to you in a few weeks, all right?
Of course.
All right, we have a motion made in second. Roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
Okay. All right, Rick, thank you very much. We will
Again-
be working
again,
on this tomorrow.
I'm sorry, say again?
We'll be working on this tomorrow.
Joe, did you hear that?
I'm muted. See, my mute is on. I didn't hear nothing.
Folks, I want to thank you very much for taking, I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to Keith and I tonight.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
All right.
Talk to you soon. I'm leaving.
Okay. Next thing I have on the agenda is everybody read the Southwick Police Department report of an incident at the Cove Restaurant parking lot a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Didi, did you read it?
Yeah. Yep.
And
Good times.
you've seen the recommendation of the Lieutenant Landis?
Yes, sir.
All right. I think that we need to have the parties involved, have a Zoom meeting with them. We're coming to the summer, we're coming to openings, and I think we have to make things very clear that this type of situation will not be tolerated whatsoever. The board have any problems with setting up a meeting with the people?
Is this going to be a formal hearing?
The last time we did not have a formal hearing with the people at the package store. That has been suggested to me that we didn't need to have a formal meeting, but we could have an informal meeting to clear the air. But if you'd like to have a formal meeting, I have no problems with that.
No, I think there's a couple things going on there. So yeah, I think we can have it informal, but it should be in part of a Board of Selectmen meeting.
Absolutely.
In public session, right? So yeah, absolutely.
You want them at the next meeting?
I believe we already have one hearing for the next meeting. Why don't we, we'll talk about that. We'll see what the schedule is,
Okay.
right? Joe, no problem?
No problem. Sounds good.
Okay. Next thing I have is, well, it says FY 21 budget adjustments, but I'm going to put that off for right now. I'm going to go to authorize the chairman to sign the 12,000 contract with our lake weed treatment program.
I'll make a motion for the chair to sign that.
I'll second. Joe Didi, second.
All right, and then Doug Moglen made the motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
Okay. Why we still have the fire chief here and deputy fire chief, I'd like to suggest that we take action and have discussion on the interview that we just had with Neil Colburn. Anybody object to that?
No, I think it's fine.
Okay. Quite frankly, I think he's an impressive young man. He's got a good recommendation from Chief Anderson and from the Deputy Chief Stefanowicz. I have no problems. He's a probationary, but offering him employment. Contingent, of course, on, as Mr. Moglen likes to say, yada, yada, yada. But I think Obviously, due to the pandemic, there's certain things that are taking longer to achieve, but they still need to be achieved. With that, any other further discussion?
Well, I just want to thank you, Russ, and the chief and the deputy chief for indulging me and going through this process that we just went through. You know, we've done it for all the other applicants that have come through, and I just think it made sense in the interest of transparency and fairness to Neil as well as everyone else, just to kind of go through the process we went to. I actually was able to meet and talk to Neil over the weekend as well. Thank you, Deputy, for helping me arrange that as well. And it made me feel a lot better about this whole process and this whole decision. So I think it's great to move forward.
Same thing. I met with them Saturday or Sunday for a few minutes. They bought an ice cream. He did tip well. That was good to see. We have it on video. Nice kid. I did beg him nicely that he's got to stay at least 3 years. All of us are tired of the revolving door. And he mentioned that they just came back and they bought a house up in Granville. He has no intentions on leaving. He really feels he can be here for quite a long time. So yeah, I'm very comfortable with him.
I also met with him on Saturdays. I guess he got a visit from all three. All right, with that, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll put forth a motion to extend an offer of employment to Neil Colburn, subject to the yada yadas. This is Doug Moglen.
Joe Didi, second.
All right, a roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Moglen, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
All right, Chief Anderson, if you could notify the Neil, we'd appreciate it. And we thank you for all your hard work, you and the deputy.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And make sure he knows he just signed a 5-year contract. He cannot leave.
That's
All right.
5 years.
Can I ask a quick thing? Is the yada yada the physical test?
Can I answer that?
Yes, you
Please.
can,
Okay,
Deputy Chief.
so yes, Hope, it is. The PAT, as it's referred to as a physical abilities test, is governed by civil service, and it's scheduled to start up in June 1st, but civil service did waive the requirement so that other departments could hire as well, and we brought Neil in as a provisional on that same premise. But he is still required to complete the PAT, and that's still part of his hiring process.
That answer your question, Hope?
Yes, thank you.
All right,
All
you're
right.
welcome.
And we also have a picture of Neil on Facebook if you want to grab it for anything.
Oh, thanks. That'll be a lot better than my screen grab.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Hope,
I'll send it to you as an email.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right, then we're moving on. We're back to F21 budget adjustments. After we met with the Finance Committee, we did our work session and we went through. It was a lengthy process. I think people were really kind of tired at the end.
No.
But one thing that we normally do when we're going through that process is we're also trying to be cognitive of the effect it will have on the tax rate because of our concern for the taxpayers. And I think we even have a greater concern this year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I heard this morning on the news that there's now 40 million people in the United States that have applied for unemployment. We have many businesses closed. This is going to be a tremendous hardship. Obviously, we're probably already in a recession. It could get even worse, going to a worldwide depression. And there could be other ramifications with the pandemic in the wintertime. So with that, I had suggested that we have further discussions on the budget, because from what, has everybody on the select board gotten the packet that Mr. Steinhardt produced with our accounting department showing the impact on the tax rate?
Yeah, let's try to figure out what it means, though. I see 21 for 2021, option 1, option 2, option 3. So let's go through it.
Okay. If we look first at the what we came up with the other night, we would be approaching, and of course all of this there are some unknowns here because of different values that come forward. but we would be looking at close to $1 a thousand impact on the tax rate, going from $17.47 to $18.35 per thousand. So I did a little brainstorming with Mr. Steinhardt, and I think everybody's got a copy of some of the things that he had thrown out just on the top of the head that we might want to consider. And we can start right with one of his first ones.
Russ, that first page, option 1, that's everything that we approved.
Right.
And it includes the paving too?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
So if we go to Mr. Steinhardt's and myself, where we threw together some of these things. One of the things was the open space signage for $10,000. Another was the Revere Road, $30,000. That was to do the work so that that would be eligible for Chapter 90 monies. If we, obviously, if we put that off, there would be a savings of $30,000 for this year. The reduction of the consultant for the lake restoration of $5,000 because we just did the alum treatment. He put in, I know there was discussions, Mr. Didi, you had mentioned this before, of holding on the police cruisers for a year.
Yeah.
We looked at the guns that were requested coming from the forfeiture account. Conference and travel was another $3,000 to reduce. Some of Mr. Steinhardt's things are tough to read, but he has a surplus in IT of $8,200. We're very lucky. The gas and oil, the bids are coming in lower, so he was looking at a $20,000 reduction. $20,000 reduction. Building and grounds, he was looking at a reduction of $5,000. DP mower of $80,000. All those would add up to about a $261,000 or almost $262,000 reduction. And then we go into one of the last things we discussed with the finance committee were the roads, the bonding issue. Randy had requested $3 million. I had started out saying that I thought we could hold off for a year. Then somebody had mentioned $1 million, and then we had a consensus of $2 million. As you can see, it just wasn't a simple case of when going from $1 million to $2 million, the cost increased by another $50,000 going to that $2 million. So if we were to hold off on the roads, would be another savings of $280,000. Currently, Randy has over $500,000 still available to use, and there'd be new Chapter 90 monies coming available also. So those are some of the things that we came up with off the top of our heads. It's open for discussion. I think you know my thoughts on this. I think we're in for a tough year, or a lot of people are in for a tough year. Normally, we try to keep our increases in the tax rate pretty modest. So I'm open for discussion.
And our free cash really isn't there this year too, right?
Well, we understand the situation. We have one of our biggest taxpayers is in bankruptcy, the American Inn. I don't think that's any secret. It's public knowledge. There's a potential that they might have a sale in the future, but that benefit wouldn't benefit us till next year, even if it does go through. But the economy being the way it is, this thing could get worse before it gets better.
And then our stabilization account?
Stabilization account, I know that Doug has thrown out the idea of maybe using some of the money from the stabilization account. All I would caution is I was here in 2011 when we had that storm, and we utilized the stabilization fund. It was millions of dollars to do the cleanup, and it was quite a while before we got reimbursements from the state and federal government. I also remember it was not too long before that, we had the bridge closure on South Long Yard, where the stabilization funds were necessary to address that issue, to open up that road. So, you know, me personally, I don't feel comfortable with using the stabilization fund because I think there's a possibility of things getting worse, and I think we need to hold that card in our hand. But that's my thoughts.
Doug, you're muted. We can't hear you.
How about now?
Hey, compadre.
I can't believe I forgot how to use Zoom between 4 and 5 o'clock.
And you're the chosen one.
I know. Anyway, so the first thing is I wanted to point out, I think on the sheet that Carl sent, I'm not sure I completely understood, because I understand the first bunch of items from the signage down to the DPW, that added up to $262,000. And then the roads, 2 million down to 1 million, and then 1 million down to 0. Does that add up to 280,000, or that's if we, you know, or are those standalone options? If we did a $2 million note, that would be $165,000 for principal and interest. And if we did a $1 million note, it would be $115,000. So I don't know if it was fair to add those numbers or not to get to 280.
Yeah, no, it wasn't fair. In that respect, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that was an error. I think so. It's basically 50,000, give or take, between 2 million and 1 million in the P&I. But and maybe I'm mistaken, but that's how I read it. And then the other side is the reason I thought about the stabilization is part of the reason that we're looking at such a big number on the tax rate, because the spending is not, there's not a huge increase in spending per se, I don't think. I'd have to go look at all the exact numbers. But the problem is that we can't apply enough free cash against the tax rate because we don't have it because of the deficient taxpayer. So my thinking is that we're going to get that money, whether we're going to get it right around, you know, when this place is sold. So hopefully within a year to 18 months, we would then be able to replenish the stabilization, and we would be, I just took stabilization at the literal sense, in that it's our own money. We could use our own money to basically borrow from our own stabilization to offset the tax rate until we receive the money that we're legitimately owed and we're going to get, and then put that money back into the stabilization, which would essentially have been the free cash we would have applied. And so we end up being whole in a year to 18 months. I also, you know, the other piece of this, and it's been bandied around, is, you know, we have not had, to my knowledge, very, very significant expenditures because of COVID, right? We've had some, you know, ancillary expense, personnel expense, and PPE expense, and Zoom, and the nurse, and a couple other things, but there hasn't been, you know, $500,000 or $200,000, any kind of number of that size that's going to be attributed to COVID so far. You know, maybe when we're all done, there's $100,000, I don't know, you know, between, you know, retrofitting stuff at the public buildings and so on and so forth to be able to function, and that will be reimbursable at some point. But we're not reflecting that in the current budget. I don't think we're reflecting it in this coming budget. So I know that, you know, there's been a lot of numbers floating around. I saw one number that was allocated to the town of Southwick at the federal level, and Carl's been deciding whether we're going to do this through FEMA or through the other program, but it was like $580,000. I don't think that's money that we got coming to us unless we had $580,000 that in expenses we incurred. So I think from a budgetary standpoint, Russ, your point's well taken. We could have another October storm. We could have a tornado. We could have a bridge washout, and we'd have to go look at that. But if we were to look at the stabilization kind of in almost dollar for dollar or 75 cents on the dollar against the net from the American Inn in arrears, we might have something to look at as far as, and then with our commitment from this board that we're going to pay that money back when the receipts come in as part of the budget. I don't know what the mechanism is, whether it's from the budget process or what have you. But when we receive that money, we're going to put it back in the stabilization. So that's my take on it, because it's a way that we can, some of the I didn't see any, some of the expenses you can defer. Certainly there's a few of them in there. Some of those are budgetary items we've been carrying for a couple of years. And I don't want to go into line by line because I don't want to use up all the time here. But, and some of them, one of them is a citizen petition. I don't know if we have no obligation to do that one, right? Technically, that you could go door to door and just assess everybody the money, but they've been paying taxes on those roads for, on their houses as though they live on a city street forever, just like we did. We went through the same process on Robin Road. But I just think it might make financial sense to look at that stabilization for some of, not for this money, but to look at it as a loan to ourselves against the money in arrears from the American Inn. And then when we collect the American Inn, we can put it back. And I don't think we're going to damage us if it wouldn't be enough of an impactful amount of money. I don't think that if we did have a bridge go out or another storm or some other occasion where we needed $1 million quickly, we'd still I'd have to look at the stabilization balance, but it would still be sufficient to cover that kind of issue. Murder hornets, whatever it's going to be next. I have no idea.
Would you, let's, for example, look at some of these suggestions from Mr.
Sure.
Steinhardt that we pulled out. Now, the Revere Road, that road is in good condition.
Yep.
The whole purpose of that was we started that ball rolling. And I know we did get the citizens to join on because it's to their benefit. But I don't see any problem with putting that off for a year.
Totally agree. On that one,
Okay.
I totally agree.
Okay. Mr. Dede?
I'm just trying to look. I was kind of looking at, we were kind of tilting at windmills here, I think, a little bit in that, if you take a look at the grand total of the budget, and then, I think we have a little bit of discretion to have a discussion on some of these finer points, but $30,000, and it's going to sound stupid and someone's going to use this against me someday, I swear, but $30,000 what does that do on the tax rate?
3 cents.
3 cents. So my point. So if is it 3 cents or is it?
Every time we hire an officer, I'll quote Mr. Russ Fox, say it's 50 or 60,000. Russ's formula, it's like a nickel or it's 6 cents, you'll tell me. So yeah, I believe it really is like 3 cents. As crazy as it sounds.
So each $10,000 is a penny on the tax rate.
Something like that, yeah.
Fantastic. So I mean it's a good way to figure that,
It
right?
is.
So
it does help.
okay, I get it. So, and I have no problem to push that off a year. But something I was looking at the police cruisers because it's a big number. That's $100,000, right? So that would be, 10 cents on the tax rate.
Tax rate.
But they're going to be back next year for 4 cruisers. So we're really just delaying the inevitable. And if we are going into an economic downturn, we're going to stack the deck for next year to put us in either further behind the 8 ball. But, I think we have to, and I didn't mean to skip ahead. So Revere Road, the signs, I'm game. I was trying to, the sign thing I thought was important because it came out of that joint committee, and with everything else going on, I thought that was actually a good idea to get those signs up. But,
if you look at that whole amount, quite honestly, so the cruisers, I agree, but if they're not there, they're not there. But everything else on Carl's paper really is something we would not have to do. I agree with that, other than if we really want to pave roads. The DPW mower, yes, it's 20 years old. Yes, it can wait another year. If shit hits the fan, we ain't going to need the goddamn mower anyways. But, so I'm with you. The oil, that's automatically coming down. Like you said, you can't read his writing there. Conference and travel, I'll give him conference and travel. I'll talk to him for now. The guns, you're right. He can get that somewhere else. The late guy and the engineer, yeah, that can wait. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. What do you think, Russ? I mean,
I can add another one. The 250th had their meeting last night, and they're postponing everything till next year, so we could reduce 5,000 for this year.
Right, right.
Right.
And I think that's what Carl did here with items 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So the item 1 is what we already agreed to. Item 2, he says, it's with all the cuts we just talked about and cutting 2 million. That's where we're at. Item 3 is all the cuts, but include 1 million. I'm sorry. Yes, the first one was 2 million. The next one's 1 million. So you can look at that too. I mean, I don't know. I'd hate to go a year on the cruisers just because we are going to get whacked later. And after talking to the school today, that's why I'm miserable. I mean, They don't see any great forecast anywhere.
Okay.
And they're honestly saying that when they get their numbers in, they may not be what the state promised them. So the state's more or less telling them through the clouds of God that you can go back to your local town for the difference. And that's what the discussion was about today. I said the town has no money. You know, we're cutting tonight. You know, so and they're going to work with us. Whatever we need to do, they get it. If we have to do the 1/12 budget, they get it. And that's really what the call was about. But I was in a great mood until we talked to them. So it sucks. So I don't know what to do. What do you want to do?
Well, I mean, I think we put the cruisers on there, Joe, because at one time you were suggesting we could get by with that. But
yeah,
you know,
Doug's right. I mean, either we grabbed a couple $100 grand out of stabilization, we roll the dice next year, we put it back, and if shit hits the fan, shame on us, right? Everything's wrong. Or we don't do the cruisers, and we know we're doing them next year, probably up to 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe 8 years ago, I think you guys only did 1 cruiser a year. And I know we travel more, we get it. I don't know. This sucks.
All right. Would there be any thought on reducing the number of cruisers, or is that just 2 cruisers there, Joe?
I think that's just 2.
That's 2.
That's
because
2.
they have to, unfortunately, this year is the changeover for the cars, so they have to get all the new equipment, lights. We've been lucky because the Explorer's been around so long. They've had those lights on like 4 generations of cruisers now, and so now this is the year that they got to go and replace all that, the cage, the lights, etc.
Okay, so we want to hold with the 2 cruisers then?
Well, I think we need to resolve the issue on the. I think we should look at that and then see where the winds go on the stabilization, and then see what we can do. And as far as whether maybe we go to, I hate to go to 1 cruiser. I think they need the 2, but if we have to, I guess we could. And the rest of it makes sense. The mower, like I said, if they don't mow the roadsides this year, I guess, we'll tell people that's why they're not mowed, right? The mower's dead and we didn't have 80 grand for a new one. And as far as and then I don't know if we want to go back into this that hard, and go back into the whole budget. I mean, this is a great list, but do we have to go back into this whole budget and really start looking at other places? And I mean, it should be nothing off limits. I mean,
absolutely, employee, whatever we got to do.
Well, I think that we already kind of addressed that, Doug, when we said that once the budget is passed, if we see things going south, we can always put another freeze on, just like we currently did. I think my thought process was to try to see if we couldn't agree to reduce certain areas, and then if in fact we do make a decision to use some of the stabilization fund, just to kind of help out local citizens that are out of work, taxpayers out of work, local businesses, so that we don't see a dramatic increase in the tax rate.
I mean, it's pouring salt in the wound, Russ. I totally agree with you. But I think at the end of the day, if you look at the budget and the dollars in the budget, as far as from what I could see here, the reason for the tax rate going from 1747 to where we are is the free cash offset, we're not making because of the taxpayer in arrears is really driving the bus. So we could soften that blow a little bit. And it's not money that we just don't have that money on hand right now in order to get it into the free cash to apply against the tax rate. So if we would eventually get it, we would then be able to put it back against the stabilization, so everybody's whole. Once it's basically, we're not even robbing Peter to pay Paul, because it's our money. We'd be using it to offset money that we're gonna get. It's just a matter of the when.
That's the big question, the when.
I know.
If in fact, God forbid, we did go into worldwide depression, we might not be getting that money for a while.
Correct. And I try to be more of a glass half full guy. In that regard, I'm hoping as we start to, other states have started to reopen more aggressively than we have, because they weren't as affected as we are. Hopefully as we step into this, it goes smoothly and we're able to do that. And, so the unemployment rolls will drop fairly precipitously as more and more people go back to work, as businesses open up. But, I agree, this is going to be definitely damaging to the economy. The question is for how long?
Right. All right. Let me go down to the big items, and that's the bonding issue for the roads. Is there an appetite to reduce that?
Yeah, I mean, same scenario, right? I don't have a problem doing nothing on the roads this year. It's going to absolutely suck. And then next year we're going to be looking at $2 or $3 million to do it, if there is a next year to the extent of this. I don't know. This sucks. It just, yeah. I mean, I'd love to do $1 million on the roads, but and I agree, the tax rate's the tax rate. And even here, he's got 2021 number 4 with cuts, nothing for roads, and 600 free cash rollover. It's still going up 40 cents, right? We're at 1747. He's at 1786. You know what I mean? So you're still going up 50 cents. And that's with everything cut out we just talked about and no roads. And somehow we got 600 from free cash that we're going to roll over. You know what I mean? You guys looking at each item number?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, so what are we comfortable with it going up? Let's figure that out first. Are you comfortable with 50 cents on the dollar going up? Or you want 0? Where do we want to be?
I'm just looking at he gave you a list of what we've done for the tax rate over the past several years, correct? Everybody's got that?
Not handy.
Not handy?
No.
I mean,
All right.
can you give them to us real quick?
Okay. He did it from fiscal 2012, 1423, fiscal 2013, 1548, fiscal 2014, 1706, fiscal 15, 1694, fiscal 16, 1710. We had a big jump in fiscal 17 to 1773. We decreased it in fiscal 18 to 1750. Fiscal 19, 1747. Fiscal 2020, 1749.
I'm sorry, can you give me 17 and 18 again? My phone was ringing.
Fiscal 17, we had a big jump, 1773. Fiscal 18, we dropped it down to 1750, and then 1747, 1749.
Yep.
So, Joe, when you're asking me, I'm just looking at this as, I guess Doug's glass is half full. I'm just trying to be look at this to say, I'm ready for that other shoe to drop. I'd like to see the tax rate go up as little as possible. to help everybody get through this thing. I think we're going to, if everything goes right, we are going to be in a very good position next year. If the American Inn sells, we get that money back. We know there's housing development being planned in Southwick. There's the possibility of federal monies coming because of the COVID-19 to help us get through this economic downturn. The state's talking about different things. I just think next year would be a year to kind of address things. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's 6 o'clock. Are we going to adjourn post until after the Board of Health meeting, or are we just going to slog through here?
I'd like to keep going.
Okay.
That'd be my thought. Any problems? It's up to the board.
I can do either. I certainly would like to attend the Board of Health meeting, but this is more important right at this moment.
Yeah.
All right.
We don't have a final decision here either, right? I mean, we're talking about it, but
if we agree on some of the first ones that, you know, we can hold off on the cruisers, we can at least eliminate, if we agree on the Revere Road, that would reduce 4 warrant articles. So
I would take everything off of this page other than the roads. The mower, if we're not doing cruisers, we're not doing the mower. You know what I mean? That, I don't think that's an issue. Do you, Doug? I mean, I want the cruisers, but I'm not going to live and die over 2 cruisers, but next year we're going in for 4.
Well, but that's going to, I mean, that's just going to, it's going to sink your battleship on the budget in next year based on that. I mean, if you look at, I actually want to plug these numbers in because, you know, if you looked at, you know, I don't even know what, you know, we've been under the levy limit. We've been running very.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole other issue. Right?
You know, well, you know, we even took on, you know, kind of a surprise $1 million expense in the tax rate. And we, you know, we really bought it in order to do that, you know, in order to keep the tax rate manageable, even with that $1 million.
Yeah.
And that hit us, when did that hit us? In 18 and 19? No, 19, right? That hit us this fiscal year, right? The first payments on, you know, that affected the tax rate. So you had a tax reduction in fiscal year 18. You had you know, and it's been tiny increases except for 13 to 14. You know, if you do the, you know, if you take 1749.
I think Russ's point is he just feels no one can have
$18 at the most.
Yeah.
That's 3%. Is 1802, 1801. So I'd have, you know, we'd have to look at this. I still think, you know, and the same thing I mean, it's a damned if you do. If we don't do anything for the roads, we just push that problem, a big boulder right into the middle of the road, so to speak, for next year. So I think we should try, if we can, we should do something if we can this year, whether we take it down, you know, Randy's out there with, you know, what does he need? $100 million. So, you know, and the, you know, the finance committee was in for a bigger amount. I was originally at $1 million. They were at 3. We came back at 2. Russ was at 0. So maybe the million, you know.
All right. So option three is get rid of Claro's thing. It's all gone. The cruisers are gone. The mower, right? That's gone. We're gonna, if we did 1 million in roads and got rid of everything else.
Yeah.
He is at 1796 proposed for FY 2020. And we're at 1747 now.
And if you put the cruisers in, then you're at 1805, which is right at 3%. If you use the 9 cents, right?
9 cents,
roughly, rough math. So if you just throw that back in, so one cruiser puts you back at $18 on the button.
Yeah. Which is 50 cents. And if you, not to, and I don't know how he does his math, but if you went back to number 5, which was all the cuts, nothing for roads, and 600 or 500 in free cash, he's at 1778. Right? So his lowest option in front of us is 1778. And if we do $1 million in roads and the cruisers, we're at 1801, right? So we're 25 cents more, 23 cents.
He's going to roll 500 in free cash over.
Right.
On the cuts,
But he's not on the other ones. So where does that free cash come from that he's rolling? You had any idea, Russ, about that 500 from free cash?
That I don't, Joe.
Okay, yeah, I don't, you know. And I know he didn't pull it out of the sky. He's good.
I know he put a lot of thought into this, you know, the different options.
Is she not there? Wingate was on earlier. Oh, okay. Just ask her where I wonder what our free cash, does this tell us our free cash anywhere?
I don't believe it does, Joe.
Free cash reoccurring, other available funds. Free cash reoccurring is 300,000. Free cash non-reoccurring is 880,000. Is right there on the, I'm looking at number 3, you know, third paragraph down of numbers, other available funds. So at 880, so he's taken 500 of that free cash, I'm assuming, letting the 300 roll over. That's got to be, yeah, Doug? You see that?
It's blacked out.
What? No, FY20. Oh, I got you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see
That's
it.
why he probably doesn't see it.
I see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 5, not free cash, non-occurring for FY20. Oh, you know why it's blocked out? Because it would be next year. We don't know those numbers, right? That we
No,
wouldn't
I
have
think
free
it's,
cash.
I think those are color on the spreadsheet of some,
Yes,
they're not just black, it's some color.
right. So it's showing 690, or no, you know what? It's 690 or 890 for non-reoccurring, and reoccurring is 300.
Well, that's because he's taking it out of free cash that he's applying it, because those numbers change
Right.
sheet over
Right.
sheet, right?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
One's 700,000, one is 600,000,
Yep.
one is 690. So I don't know what the actual balance of free cash is. This is
Right.
what he's applying for revenue, but we carry a larger number. But
Right. So I mean, if
but the free cash is down because of the arrears.
True.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I'm just looking to borrow. So my point is to take against the.
Say
If we're
400
going to get
against.
the stabilization, just look at the delta between 20 and 21 and make the amount to use from stabilization is the delta between what we used in 20 and what he's got in the 2021 sheets. So whether it's like 200 grand, and so that's 20, you know, that's a significant amount of dough. That's 20 cents on the tax rate.
Right. 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 You're right. So can I float that we do nothing on that paper? If we did $1 million in roads and see, I guess put the cruisers in there and then see where he's grabbing that free cash from to see what the number would be. I don't know. Russ?
No, I think that would be a good compromise. We leave the cruisers in there and reduce the roads to $1 million.
And get rid of the mower, get rid of everything else that was there. The open signs, Revere Road, the lake, you know, whatever, all of it gone.
Right.
Okay.
And the $255,000?
Gone.
Oh yeah.
So everything's gone but 2 cruisers and then $1 million on the roads.
That's what we're thinking. At least to see what that number looks like. And I'd love to understand the free cash roller over, because he's increased it to 100 to 500, and the other one was a different number, right? It was 600 free cash, nothing for the roads. And And I know Carl, he's got that all figured out. Because if that free cash is there and he's really rolling it over, then that would bring your number down, Russ, without touching stabilization. And I know, we don't know.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
This sucks. It just does, because we got to sit here and have this discussion, and that's what screwed us up the other night. And it's no one's fault, but in the old days when we used to meet back there in that building, you had the computer set up, right? And every time we did something, we had the pennies and the nickels, and we knew where we were, and we wouldn't have discussed 2 million, right? You would have said, boys, here's the number.
And that's a good point, Joe. So one of the things that we signed up for, we got that community compact grant this year to bring in a best practice so that we can make this a little easier to deal with, and we could have the town accountant have this be online, and so that because it didn't always work exactly how you're saying, how.
Oh, no, it didn't.
But we could actually do that, and so the entire budget would be live. So you could just play with any number you want, and it would, even if you cut a person, it would figure out their benefits and pull their, even during the year, you could say, oh, we're going to add a person here. What's the effect on the budget there? And it would add all the buckets, and it even drill down to the tax rate. So that's the best practice thing that we signed up for, that we got the grant for, that we're going to go ahead and do. Because this is great. It is a little cumbersome. They do a great job maintaining this, but it's hard to maintain it because there's so many things. When you change one thing, these are great because they're expense items, and it's easily, you say, okay, each $1,000 is 3 cents on the tax rate. That's easy. But
and there's always more to it.
10,000, 3 cents on the tax rate. But when you start playing with people or principal and interest expense, you can't. It doesn't always work that so easily. And then we could have been more. We could do more with that.
All right. Do we have an agreement then that this would be something we would have the CAO and submit that to the finance committee, that we've made these adjustments to get their opinion on it?
Yeah, and they're listening. Linda and Bob seem to be listening in, so I'm sure their opinion will be ready.
Right.
And we're going to we meet Tuesday as well too, right?
Correct.
So we'll have this number by Tuesday, so we can figure out if we need to make any finer tuned adjustments before we move ahead.
Okay. So just for clarification, are the cruisers in or out? I thought they were in.
In.
Okay. Cindy, you got that?
Got it.
Okay.
And then 1 million
on the roads.
roads. Yep,
Okay.
that's it.
All right. Then that is what we'll work on. We'll submit that to the finance committee with our reasonings.
And check out that free cash deal with where he's looking at that, just to see. I'm not saying it's in there, but just, I'm sure Carl will be calling all of us tomorrow separately and educating us, of course.
All right. Very quickly, I'm going to try to finish up the minutes or the meeting so that we can go to the Board of Health meeting. Acknowledge payables warrant number 2029B dated 5/18/2020 in the amount of $469,365.28. Special payroll warrant number ARTREF dated 5/14/2020 in the amount of $675.12. I need a motion to accept the minutes dated 5/12/2020.
This is Doug Mogul. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended. I sent my changes back to Cindy earlier. They were all typos.
Joe Didi, second.
All in favor, roll call vote, Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Need a motion to accept the work session minutes dated 5/13/2020.
Doug Mogul will make that motion.
Joe Didi, second.
A roll call vote, Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
Okay, dates to remember. The local election is going to be Tuesday, June 9th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The polling location will be at Town Hall, but is being moved to the Council on Aging facility center on the lower level to make it easier for people to get in and out. So that will be something we're hoping to publicize. It should run very smoothly. Special town meeting, annual town meeting will be the following Tuesday on June 16th. Mr. Didi is working with the town moderator, the CAO, the police and fire, Board of Health. It'll be, right now it's tentatively scheduled to be outside at Southwick Town, Southwick Regional in the same parking lot where we had our special town meeting.
It doesn't rain.
And we do have a rain date.
We're going to stack it and rack it.
What was that, Joe?
We're going to stack it and rack it. We're all set. We can do weddings that day. We got everything covered. 200 people. I got
awesome.
The chairs, the porta potties. I got the stage, and I got the PA system. We can do drive-through weddings. We got to offset this budget, Russ. We got to offset this budget.
That is
I got
awesome.
it ready to go.
All right, I was moving right along.
You're doing, it's all good. It's all good.
Okay, old business, Southwick Fire Department Station project big recommendation of 1.1 million. We've met with the Finance Committee. I think we're all on board. So a motion to the selectmen to support.
For the bond issue for the fire station?
So the recommendation of the 1.1 million. We never took a formal vote because we were waiting to meet with the Finance Committee. So if we're just the select board voting that we accept the recommendation of Russo and Barr Designers, and we're going with the 1.1 million bond recommendation.
Oh, okay.
For voters.
This is Doug Mogul. I'll make that motion.
Joe Didi, second.
All in favor, roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
It's unanimous. We're still working with Mass DOT on the Congamon Road project. The emergency rental assistance program is still on hold. LMC boat ramp launch fee. Joe, go ahead.
What do you want from me over that mess? What they wanted at $8, right? That's what they voted for.
Yeah.
The other night, I'd love to see it for $5 for the boats, but the state won't do that. And then they said, which they had me. They just said the state said they won't do it. I would have shut my mouth. But thank God Doug Mogul was talking because he polishes everything so pretty. Then the next breath was, well, you can have 2 stickers, but it'd be such a pain. It's just disappointing. Just tell me it's 1 sticker and I'm okay with it. But it almost sounded like if we could put heat on them, we probably could get a $5 non-motorized vessel. But they went over pennies and dollars, and it was turned into a damn cluster. So I guess we're at $8, right, Doug?
So yeah, and you know, typical of this. I don't want to name names, but very typical. Everything's a crisis, you know, because it was self-inflicted, right? They were all upset that they weren't able to charge $8 this past weekend, and they're going to be in the red, and they're going to go. The town's going out of business because they didn't get their $3 last Saturday and Sunday. But and it was such a paperwork nightmare to do the 5 and the 8. However, so for anyone who listens to this, you can go to the Old Town Beach and throw your kayak in the water for free. And there's another place you can go and join the Congamon Heights Beach Association for, I think it's $30 or $50 a year. Don't quote me on the amount. And you can launch your kayak from their beach all you want for the year. Because we also mentioned maybe they could have a season pass for residents for kayaks or something. And again, they all went crazy about the money we were taking out of their pocket. So we have no choice. That is our ad hoc committee that we support. They do need a motion of this board to go to the $8, but I want to let anyone know that's got a kayak, go to the Old Town Beach, park for free, and put your kayak in the water for nothing, and wave to the ramp attendants as you row by. Doug Mogul will make that motion.
They redacted you have to actually belong or have property in the Congamon Heights thing, so that actually didn't work in the end. But you can go over the line.
They even lied to me, even better. But you can definitely go to the Old Town Beach because we own that. So
you go into Connecticut and park on that beach. Even though the sign says you can't launch your thing, you can. It's okay. So I'll second the goddamn motion.
All right, we have a motion made by Mr. Mogul, second by Mr. Didi. A roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, begrudgingly aye.
Joe Didi, no.
All right.
Passes.
It passes. All right. Very quickly, any other old business?
I think we should congratulate Michelle Hill and everyone in Town Hall, including you, Joe, and Russ, and everyone else who came in and worked the polls to make that go as smoothly as it did. And also an excellent suggestion by Cindy, and was quickly adopted by Michelle, to move the polling downstairs to the senior center for the town elections to make it easier for entrance and egress, especially for our senior population, to get in and out of the back of Town Hall instead of having to walk around the building.
It went well. We only had 4 people with no mask. The first one, as Kane was so jazzy, I didn't notice the non-mask. I got lectured later by someone in that building. And then the other 3, one gentleman just couldn't wear one due to his condition. They were fine with that. And the other 2 guys forgot them. I gave them one, and we had no issues at all. It was great.
Fantastic.
All right. No further old business. We're moving on to new business. I need a motion to approve the local election warrant for 6/9/2020.
Doug Mogul will make that motion.
Joe Didi, second.
All in favor? Roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
All right. It
Joe
carries.
Didi, aye.
Any other new business?
Yeah, we probably would be reorganizing our board tonight, right? Or Tuesday if we had had a meeting based on our previous calendar.
Oh, yeah.
We'll wait till after the election, Mr. Chairman, but I'm just making a note.
Stage a coup.
No, I'm just making a historical observation that we probably would have been reorganizing the board tonight, right? It would have been after the meeting following the town meeting, right?
Yeah. We would be.
So thank you, Russ. You've put in extra super duty as chairman, even a longer term.
It'll be in your retirement package.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other new business? If not, a motion to adjourn.
Doug Mogul making that motion.
Joe Didi will second.
All right. Roll call vote. Russ Fox, aye.
Doug Mogul, aye.
Joe Didi, aye.
All right. Thank you.